Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara. We talk about TV shows here. The year is 2021 and the name of the show is Babylon 5. This is season 2, episode 14. It is called They're All the Honor Lies. That's a weird phrasing, actually, to be honest. I'm actually reading that out loud. They're all the honor lies. They're all the honor lies. I feel, I need to kind of emphasize a pause after the there. Anyway, I'm analysing the title too much. So we have a bit of a conspiracy plot this episode where Sheridan is lured into a moment where he is forced to defend himself and ends up killing a Minbari of the warrior caste. And the fallout of that and the political web that may spawn from it is then the focus, as the A-plot is the primary focus of the episode. But there are a couple of different subplots as well running throughout. Notably, 2 cast members who have not been in the show for several episodes both have one scene in this. And Talia was a good whatever, because it's like, she had a really good trilogy recently. It's not been too long, and it's just there to serve Veer's subplot. But Poochie at the end, just for the little joke ending, I did think was kind of funny.
Poochie was there?
At the end?
That wasn't just a security guard?
And the ship with the teddy bear?
The teddy bear?
Oh god, did you watch the wrong episode?
Oh, was that Poochie?
Yeah, Poochie.
Oh.
You watched the right episode though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the teddy bear I didn't question.
Admittedly, it'd be weird if you didn't say something after I said, Sheridan's kills him in Barry, and that's the premise of the episode. I feel like that would be the first point where you would say, this is not the one I watched. But
no,
good.
I didn't recognize Poochie.
Yeah, that was Kefir. Yeah, that was Kefir at the end. For the teddy bear. That's how long he's been gone. Tara didn't even recognize him.
No. I'm glad Talia got to strut in a super flattering suit and go, oh, Veer, what's wrong? And then was never seen again.
Yeah, I thought she was going to go and talk to him because she could sense that he was distressed. But
right,
she never did.
Because she wasn't like worried that he spilled, booze on her or anything. She was like concerned, So I thought there would be a follow-up scene. It wasn't until the end of the episode where I was like, oh wait, Talia was in this. She never came back.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate them throwing in some of the characters that aren't being
Franklin
used.
had one scene also and then was gone. Everybody was in this.
I think Franklin's one where I expect to see him in small doses like this when he's not in the plot, just because he's the doctor. Yeah. Because we've got a scene where someone has died and they're looking at the body. Of course, Franklin's there because it just makes sense that he's there. But the others. But I mean, I don't mind it. I don't mind them having small cameos effectively when they're not.
I mean, that really is what it felt like.
Yeah.
Just little cameos of the crew,
Yeah, but yeah. So the A plot though is Sheridan's mugged after a joke opening, which sets up another subplot where they're going to open a gift shop on Babylon 5 with merchandise, which is a very light-hearted opening, obviously. But then it becomes a bit more serious when Sheridan is mugged for his communicator and ends up being attacked by a Minbari. And ultimately grabs a firearm that is on the floor, which I thought was weird in the moment. I thought, that's weird. Was that his? Did he drop it? But I'm like, he doesn't usually carry a weapon. The security guys do, but he doesn't. And then
I thought maybe the Minbari dropped it when they were struggling. Yeah,
which is what he himself speculates later on. And then he gets up and there's another Minbari there who's witnessed this. Who's not a warrior caste Minbari. He's actually from the same clan as we find out as Lanier. But that sets up the episode. It's like, okay, there's been this killing and Sheridan's trying to prove that it was self-defense and that this is what happened. To the point where the phrase that the Minbari yells before he shoots him, only death, I think, was the line. It was similar to that.
Death first?
Death first. It may have been death first. But it's actually very similar to a Minbari phrase that means to surrender, which is very coincidental, which I kind of love. I kind of love that. Because when Lanier's saying, he's like, oh, no, I think what you actually heard was, Daeth first. which means or something to that effect. That gave me a little chuckle. But it becomes this story about how Minbari are not supposed to lie. And the Minbari are basically have tasked Delenn with investigating this independently of Garibaldi's investigation. So every person that Garibaldi goes to question, Lanier also goes to question. And we also got this idea that Minbari do not lie. Although we figure out that there are actually loopholes to this later on, which is if it's to do with preserving honor, they're allowed to lie in that case. Because I did actually really like the scene where Sheridan outright says to Delenn that like their witness who claims that everything was looking worse for Sheridan, that Sheridan's at fault here. He basically says no, he's lying because what he's saying is not accurate. That's not what happened. And Delenn's like, I'll pretend I didn't hear that, and now did you, Lanier. Like we didn't hear that, and it makes it clear that if he heard that you said that, he would try and kill you because that is like the ultimate diss, basically. Like that is so against their honor. But as far as the A plots go, it's not one of the strongest ones of the season. I think there's some little things like this that come out of it that I like. I also like it in the ending. Sheridan basically chooses to not reveal the true motivations, which turns out to be that the Minbari, or certain leaders of factions of the Minbari, not all of them, want to essentially get him kicked off Babylon 5 and not be the commander anymore. And to do that, they're trying to make everyone doubt him. And whether or not he's found guilty or not, the fact that he may even have to go to trial for this would remove him effectively. So, but he's willing
Pretty
to
solid
not.
plan.
It's a solid plan. But he's willing to let that kind of slide and not really reveal that that's what's happened, because to reveal this, because he's in the same clan as Lanier, Lanier's whole clan would feel the shame of it. They would be dishonored because of it, and Lanier kind of proves throughout the episode that he is a good person. Garibaldi sticks up for him at one point. And Sheridan at the end sort of says, look, we're not going to put this on you. So as long as we can sort of like prove that my name, we don't have to actually bring up the motivations or who was behind it. As long as they won't pursue it further, which he confirms with Delenn. So I like those interactions between some of the characters who have not necessarily interacted that much. We got a little bit more of Delenn feeling the prejudice, where this Minbari, Ashen, he won't even talk to her. He's like, I'm not entertaining you. You're not one of us. You're some freak. Like, I'll speak to Lanier.
Mm-hmm. He calls her a freak.
Yeah. Which obviously upsets her and sends her out. And we hear a little bit more about the Black Star and how some of the tribe and some of the tactics that maybe Sheridan was using that do sound a bit nefarious. I wonder if we'll get more context for that as time goes on.
Well, he told that story in one of the earlier episodes of how he was able to take down the Black Star. And, when he talks about it, he's a hero because they're, the Minbari were winning and wiping everybody out. And he was the only one who took out like a ship, right?
Yeah.
A big freighter or something, right?
I can't remember the specific details he gave of how they did it necessarily, but
I remember there was some sort of trick involved in order to be able to do it.
Yeah, but I think what's interesting though is that sort of tells you like how much more advanced the Minbari tech and ships are, and maybe why like that was the only way anyone pulled it off, was a dirty tactic like that. But right, but it's obvious why the Minbari would feel cheated by that tactic.
Sure, yeah, but the Minbari had a clear advantage since they were not just winning, but like they were wiping the floor with humans. I mean, it was almost genocide.
Yeah,
until the end. So, which we learned in the last season or so. And but yeah, the I think the point is the first time we heard the story of what happened, it's from the perspective of the humans, and he's a hero for it. But now we're hearing the story from the Minbari, who are like, no, he's a criminal and can't be trusted.
And we've had hints of this because of the way they call him, the nickname and all that. Like, we've had hints of how they feel about him, and this is kind of a good example because the show's so much about like, peace and where that comes from and diplomacy that gets us there. The idea that we have an event in the history like this where it does sound like this heroic story told from the human perspective, but then you hear the Minbari side of it and it sounds horrific and like he's a war criminal. And I think the fact that Delenn and Lanier even more so is willing to sort of say no, like we're not pursuing this. This is not about the past. This is not about the war. This is about building something new. The fact that they're trying to build peace, even with that history in place, and what they have to sort of let go and forgive. And likewise with Sheridan, because, even when he's talking to Garibaldi, there's still the odd little bit of phrasing that kind of shows that he's not completely forgiven.
I picked up on it.
Yeah, the Minbari as a whole, he still kind of sees as even though he's clearly getting closer to Delenn, he's clearly seeing them differently more and more with maybe each passing day, but there's still a little bit of that in there.
He does. He mentions he's still Minbari, like, you gotta be careful or something. I don't remember the phrasing exactly, but it made my ears perk up, like,
yeah, it was when Garibaldi...
Not that I blame him.
Yeah, it was when Garibaldi asked him for a description of the witness, and he just sort of like shrugs and goes, he was bald and he had like bone like around his head, and just walked out. And Garibaldi's like, well, that narrows it down. Which, yeah, it's like, even though Sheridan ultimately was duped here, and he's definitely in the right, pretty much by and large in this episode, and every event that is brought up around this, that one little moment is just a little bit of, yeah, he's not a perfect person. Like, that was a little bit of a racist reaction to that question in a way. So I think that's, there's a bit of depth there, and there's some interesting snippets. And I thought this gave Lanier a little bit of a spotlight in a more serious story than he typically... He gets subplots with Londo, or he gets subplots with whoever, and he's a very fun character, but having him actually...
bicycle.
He builds a motorbike, but having him actually confront Ashen and say, you've already disrespected us, so I'm going to take the fall for everything you've done, because that is my honor to do that, because we are the same clan. I've given you a chance to be honorable and sort of, get redemption for your name and your family, but you've not taken it. So he's going to, and it makes us like Lanier a bit more, even if we don't completely understand why he feels he has to do this, because obviously from our perspective, we're like, no, like,
well, it was a trick.
Yeah. I mean, true, but even before that, like when he gets them in the underground, or not underground, you know what I mean, like the lower decks, and he's like having the standoff with them, they're both doing their no, it's like that. It's like they're doing the Spider-Man pose with
the rock and roll.
Yeah, and they're both doing that, and he talks about how this is your chance
every time the
to
music
fess up.
kicks in too.
Oh sure. Sure.
While they're fighting, or it comes up and then the music gets all heightened, like it's going to be intense.
Yeah, I think.
I have no idea what their fighting looks like so far. It's just a lot of poses.
Oh no, we've seen Lanier do some spin kicks. Remember when he was with Londo in the bar fight? He threw some kicks. Yeah. So
he did a spin kick.
I think. I mean, I think the fighting is just like martial arts. I don't think it's going to be anything super different. They just pose slightly differently before they start. That's it. I mean, that's it.
It's not very threatening.
If they developed the whole martial art for the show in the way that Star Trek made a whole language for the Klingons, then power to them. Like, I'll be impressed. I'll be very impressed. I'll expect it.
Vulcans have their own fighting style.
I don't need it.
It's all about necks. They got to protect the necks because of the pinching.
It's all defense against the pinch.
Yeah, that's why they wear big collars.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. The best part is that this might be serious, it may be a joke, and either way it works, and I have no idea. So, fair play. So yeah. The main plot. I think the main plot, I would say, suffers a little in this episode because it's very murky. It points exactly the ins and the outs of what the conspiracy is, and the hierarchy of like the system and the Minbari. It became clearer by the end, don't get me wrong, but there was definitely points, and then once Earth started sending a lawyer, like the lawyer character and her like scenes just all felt kind of whatever. I just felt
She's
like
an actress we've seen before. She was the first assistant to Shakar, but couldn't handle all the makeup.
Oh, well, I don't feel bad for not recognizing her then, because clearly looked very different without all the Narn makeup on. But
I don't remember her name, but she was. I mean, I recognized her photo on the IMDb. I'm like, she's been here before.
Yeah, I actually is this the first episode in a while where there's not been a single guest star that I recognized that face at least? It might be. we had a string where it felt like there was 2 or 3 big guest stars like on every episode for like maybe like at least half a dozen.
Yeah.
It was insane just how consistent that was. I guess eventually the streak had to break, but here we are. So yeah, I guess ultimately what I'm saying about the main plot is that I didn't necessarily find the conspiracy itself that compelling, but I did like some of the character outcomes from it.
I actually thought that was the better part of the episode, was the conspiracy. Okay. And I thought the other parts sort of made it seem less serious because it gets a little bit jokey when it cuts to other things, or whereas like I don't want to compare it to Star Trek, but it's all I know, so I'm gonna do it. Like I was thinking, like, if this was an episode in Star Trek where like somebody's trying to frame someone for murder in order to start like a galactic crisis or galactic war or whatever, like this would be a huge deal and would be the only plot in the show. And I thought like this, I actually thought the story was quite good, and if they just stuck more to how serious it really was, then it would have been a lot better. Not that it was bad, it's just
maybe you're right. Maybe that's the sort of focus it needed. It needed to be just the only spotlight in the show. Maybe having subplots that were more comedic took away from it. Maybe that's accurate. Maybe that's why I wasn't feeling it quite as much overall. In terms of the plot, like I say, the character outcomes, some of the interactions and relationships amongst the plot, I liked well enough, and I think some of them are quite good. But I thought
all the scenes with like Delenn and Sheridan were like pretty good. Like she was not sure about his reaction to killing a Minbari, and then she like telling him like in the beginning after the incident just how serious this is. Like we cannot afford to have this incident right now. Everything's pretty unstable as it is, and that felt like a big threat. And then afterwards it didn't really follow through with just how much of a threat that was. I thought it would be taken a bit more seriously.
No, I mean I agree. Like the interactions between Delenn and Sheridan, or Lanier and Sheridan, like those are the sort of things that I really liked to the plot. It was just the actual conspiracy. It was the actual culprit, the witness himself. Like a lot of that stuff I just wasn't as into, and it was kind of murky at points, at least for me. Like there was a point in the middle of the episode where I wasn't really even sure like what they were saying about the motivation. Like it wasn't until they really spelled it out that I kind of get what they're saying now, but it didn't click for me. And the reason why I think that's important is because so many plots on this show, because it is typically very well written with its intrigue and it's like the politics between the races and the characters, that usually things click really well, where I really like understand what they're doing because the story is well told, and I feel it, and you can predict it almost in a way that the show wants you to predict it. And here I felt like I was having to wait for them to kind of spell it out a little bit more, and I think that's a crutch. It's a bit of a fault in the writing. Not to because I noticed this episode was written by Peter David, who is a prolific comic book writer whose work I've enjoyed in the past. So not to blame the writing itself necessarily, but maybe just taking away the subplots and giving it the full episode to really explore the serious side of what this was. Maybe would have been the thing to make it. Because you're right. They mentioned this is like times are very delicate. This could completely topple the house of cards, as it were, and. But after that scene, I don't know if you get that feeling for the rest of the episode. It feels more just like a personal, someone wants Sheridan removed from command, and that's it. It didn't really feel like as big a deal on a larger scale after that point. But,
Yeah.
So.
But, I mean, I still enjoyed it. Like, all the little details we get, the interactions between the characters that we really like, and some of the extra lore we get about the Minbari I thought was really interesting.
Well, the lore's
mostly through
good.
Lanier.
Yeah, lore's good. The idea that you've got the clan, but the clan is bigger than the family, because these two guys don't really know each other. They're both part of the same clan, but because I think and it made that clear. Actually, this was good writing. This particular little exchange is when Ashen is saying, Black Star, when that happened, like members of our clan, many members of our clan were on that ship. And Lanier responds with, many of my family were on that ship. And it made it very clear that one-upped what he just said. It's like, not just our clan, like actual family members of mine were on that ship. So I think that made it very clear that, okay, you've got obviously your actual family, which, you know, is just like we have families, but then there's the clan, which is a bigger, more communal kind of thing. Where...
and it's meaningful because, well, we like Lanier. His first interaction with Sheridan was a little, you know, standoffish, but then he sort of apologized for it. And now we know, like, he does have every reason to dislike Sheridan, but he's putting that aside because he has the bigger picture in mind of what Babylon 5
and because
represents, which is a better future.
And because he believes in Delenn, because that's what the point he makes very clear in this episode, is that he's like, no, he takes honor and pride in Delenn's word, and he's going to fight for what she... And I think, to your point, I you know, what you just said there, that is a great point, that we previously had Lanier be cold with Sheridan, and even though they kind of patched things up, I think this episode, with Sheridan going out of his way to sort of like, you know, throw him a bone, and trying to do his best to make sure Lanier's life is not ruined by this. Because it shouldn't be. I mean, we agree it shouldn't be, because he's not at fault. It wasn't him. He had nothing to do with it.
No, I guess he's just like the highest ranking of this clan on the ship, or I say ship, on the station. So that he's like the manager who has to take the fault for the workers.
Yeah, I know that. I don't even know if it's important what his rank is. I think it's just important that he knows about it and he's there. So he's taking it on himself. Because it's like, yeah, I'm going to throw myself in the sword because he's you know, I'm in Barry of honor. he's going to do it. So I think like him going out this way is like just further building bridges with Sheridan has with some of the characters. In this case, Lanier, where Lanier, if he was starting to believe that Sheridan is actually a good man and that maybe someone that they can truly find a mutual respect and cooperation with, then this moment is maybe like a, you know, not just telling that he's a good man, this is like showing him that he is a good man. And that's important going forward, probably. But I'd forgotten about their cold first meeting. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really good callback from like, you know, what we learn about what his family being on that ship really adds to that, I think. So that's cool. The subplots in the episode. So we got the gift shop. I did have a little bit of fun when although I think it was weird there was action figures of some of the ambassadors. That was a bit odd. But
did it seem a little bit like they got the merchandise for the show like sent to them in a PR package and they're like, we got to use this.
That said though, I did like the double joke of Ivanova seeing what she thought was an alien, who is someone in makeup, but then obviously they do the camera cut to someone pulling off a mask and it's actually a human. And then it's someone who's a human, who's just an actor, but then they do the cut so that it's actually an alien taking off a human mask.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. It was a fun little trick they did with a mirror too. So it was all done in one shot still. Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah, I thought that was a really nice little play. And Yvonne was like, screw this, because she hates the whole gift shop thing. She's like, that's just demeaning. I like selling t-shirts.
I like that you can get human masks.
Yes. Yeah, because that's a good point. It's not just products for humans. It's products for aliens who maybe want a human mask.
Yeah, because humans are aliens.
Yes.
To an alien.
Take that to the Narn kids back home. Here's a human mask. Oh.
For their whatever their Halloween is, which is probably every day. Their scary planet. They have demon eyes.
And maybe some of the biggest laughs of the episode. I mean, Londo's in there with Veer's plot, but he also happens to notice, like later in the episode, that some other Centauri are laughing at something, and he's like, oh, what's the joke over here? And he walks over, and then he sees
just Centauri. This is important.
Yes.
Lady Centauri.
Lady Centauri. And he sees his doll, and he storms into Sheridan's and demands that this thing be taken away. And the Centauri government won't stand for it, which is funny because he's not talked to the Centauri government. This is all him. He's just come in here to demand this, and basically makes it clear that based on what their sexual organs are and where they are, that this doll makes him look less than, shall we say, makes him look like he's.
I imagine it's the equivalent of the Ken doll.
Yeah, the idea. Yes. That's like a human being.
Except there is no genitalia.
Yes, he's mad that there's no dick, or in his case, dicks, or tentacle dicks or whatever the correct terminology for.
There's 6 of them.
Yeah, the 6-pack.
And they do tricks.
But of course, Sheridan, who does agree to take the dolls off the shelf, doesn't have a problem with the actual merch store until Ivanov at the end of the episode shows him a teddy bear that has his initials on it, because the teddy bear is supposed to be him. And this upsets him so much that he demands that the store be completely closed, even though it's going to bring in millions of credits and profit every year. And the final scene is the joke scene of the bear hitting the window in space of Pucci as he's on his way back. In fact, not even as he's on his way back, I think he actually says they're out there to check on an unidentified object that's floating around.
So I guess he got shot out of the airlock.
It's a bit of a silly ending. I mean, I do understand thematically how this subplot fits with the main plot, though, because it's kind of a joking version of Honor, right? Like, that's the whole thing, is Londo feels his pride's hurt because his doll doesn't have his 6 dicks. And then Sheridan, I guess, thinks the teddy bear's too cute and cuddly and not manly enough or something.
I guess. I was thinking of, like, it doesn't seem like it's that bad.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I don't completely get why he's so, like, offended. It's not like anyone knows that that's his initials, other than Ivanova.
For some reason, he feels a bit emasculated, much like Londo.
Yeah, I mean, that's the joke, obviously, because he reacts in a similar fashion, but he has the power to just take it away, so he does. It's all right.
It seems a little out of character.
It felt a bit forced for the joke, even if some of the actual beats were amusing enough. But I did like the gift shop stuff itself for that one scene, with the masks. I thought that was a fun little touch.
Yeah, that was a fun scene.
Yeah. Speaking of Sheridan, it's not the only plot with him, because he's supposed to be going to Kosh, which apparently he's been getting lessons, weird mystical lessons, which he even jokes about the fact that even after he's had them, he doesn't really know what the point or purpose of said lessons were. And
it's just more David Lynch viewings.
And in the middle of the episode, Kosh shows up and demands that he come for his lesson, and he takes him to the lower decks and sends him into this very short deck. This like an under deck under the floor.
Yeah, apparently he makes a comment saying, like, if Garibaldi knew we were here, he would come get us immediately. Like, it's an area of the ship or I keep saying ship, the station that nobody goes to. It's dangerous, yeah. Maybe there's some uncharacteristic people, linger around. But Kosh makes him go into this little area, and it's clearly, there's people clearly live here, because there's, like, stuff tied everywhere, fabric. Not in the bad way that alien ship had fabric everywhere. This was, like, more... people have been hanging up things and stuff, and there's like a person, or I don't even know if it's a human, like it's probably an alien in a hood, who just puts a bowl forward, and he doesn't have anything to give them because all of his money's like he doesn't carry physical cash. And to be fair, I'm pretty much already there. I've been there for years at this point, so I completely get why in Babylon 5 in 2259 I completely understand why he's not got physical cash on him. I always have an emergency 20.
Just in case.
Just in case. Sometimes, you go to a parking thing that's cash only. Still happens.
Yeah. Well, stupid parking places need to get with the times. All right, we've moved on. But he gives him like his badge, because it's just his name badge. He's got a bunch of them. He's got spares. It's not worth much, but it's literally the only thing he can take off of his persons and give it to him. And the entity, I'll just say, takes it and just drags it back. And then all of these sort of lumps of like clothes or whatever it looked like before in the background all start to move, and there's like other singing monks or something there. I don't have a hot take on this to give you something here. So Tara, why don't you explain to us all what this scene was and what it meant?
Well, he says his lesson is beauty in a dark place or something, like, even though it's an area of the ship where he thought, like, you don't go there because it's sketchy or whatever, there's still something there that's worth seeing, and don't, like, judge a book by its cover, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, I did get that sentiment, especially with his conversation with Yvonne afterwards, and I did like her joking, "Well, it's working because you're starting to sound like a Vorlon." Like, you know, that was fine. I got the beauty in the dark place, or the whatever the line was. I did get the sentiment there. The actual beauty itself, though, this weird singing and like all the lights and the reflections of the colors around the room. That part itself, I wasn't entirely sure what he was experiencing beyond just some weird singing. But I don't know if that's just, I don't know, like, limitations of what they can do to get the point across of what it is he's seeing and experiencing.
Yeah, it has a little bit, because of like the scaffolding above them, it has like a bit of a kaleidoscope effect on the fabric. Yeah. Like, it looks okay. It looks cool. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely... The music is pretty.
It's definitely an interesting visual. I'm just not so sure what I was expecting, because you know, when the bull comes forward and he's like sort of, he stalls for a bit as he's trying to decide what to pay him with. I was like, where's this going? What's going to happen once this is accepted? Yeah. And I was not prepared for the kaleidoscope chanting.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's just like you think this room is for garbage, but actually has great acoustics.
Maybe. I don't know. It's certainly a weird one. So I think, you know, ultimately I came out of this episode where every plot had something I liked, but then I've not even spoken about Veer yet, but every plot had something I liked, but there was also parts of every plot that weren't quite clicking, because either it didn't click with me exactly what was going on or something. Veer's plot is that he's very stressed. He gets a message, and it drives him to the drink, where he is, for the first time in his life, seemingly getting drunk. And as someone who's never drank alcohol, I actually got quite a chuckle when he's got a hangover the next day, and Londo's like, your first hangover, Veer, and he's like proud of him. As someone who's never drank, that actually gave me a chuckle, because potentially it's something that I still could experience at some point. I have no plans, but I
guess you've gone so long without it, might as well keep going.
Yeah, but I mean, it could be you that drives me to it, let's be honest. So
I have that ability.
Look at the look of your face. You're like, oh, that's a challenge, is it? So yeah,
as someone who's experienced many hangovers, I felt for Veer.
Yeah. So this was a fair enough plot. And it was Veer, the stress. I think I liked the character development here for Veer, which was, his family, the way his family sees him, and then all the work that he has to do for Londo, and it's all the secrets he has to keep, and the darker things that are happening now, and all the stuff that Londo's involved in, like the between that and then the thought of going back home to the family, it describes it as being between a fire and a flood, and that he's caught in between and he has no options. And I do like that Londo's solution is like kind of sweet, and it's like, I've undervalued you and I've not been as nice to you as I should be, but I can fix that in the future. But then he does it in the most Londo, I'm still making your life terrible way. that he says, I invited your family to come and stay, and I told them how proud they should all be of you, and all the rest of it. But they're coming to stay for a month. I knew you'd understand. Yeah. And then he immediately just starts drinking again, because a month, and he just starts gobbling down whatever martini he's still got sitting next to him. It's a fine little plot. I think this one on its own would have served as a nice subplot to the main plot, because it's a little bit more lighthearted, but it's like so separate in character that I don't think it would have detracted from the seriousness. Whereas the gift shop stuff and the teddy bear, like that's a bit more. It's the light side of Honor, but I still think it probably does detract from the main plot a little bit.
Yeah, I guess like it's definitely not a bad episode. For the most part, I was very much into it. I just in the beginning I thought, whoa, this is a really serious episode. Something big is happening. Just killed someone.
To be fair, I would say, as far as the standard that this show has now established as a consistent basis, I would say it is kind of a weak episode. But I would use that as a compliment to say, well, the show is good enough that even when it has a weaker episode like this, there's still a lot of things to find in it, and that's that's how I tend to value, especially shows from this era, which were network or something similar, where the 22 episode seasons where they can't all be winners. Like,
Sure.
all of my favorites from this kind of era, they all kind of come under this, where yeah, they've all got weaker episodes, but the beauty of it is if you're into the characters enough, you're into the ongoing things enough, that you still find a lot to enjoy even in the bad episodes.
Sure, there's still little details or character developments that will matter.
Yeah, and again, maybe the word bad is harsh, but I think weaker is a fair word for this episode.
And it's not the first time we've had just a lack of balance in the levity and the seriousness in the show.
It happens. And it's not like the show doesn't do comedy well a lot of the time, because we've talked about how funny it is at times. And, you know, Londo holding up the doll, and, like, honestly, I don't think Londo has ever sounded angrier than when he said, Captain! You know, when he was, like, you know, like, ready to, like... Because when he walked in and said Captain, I thought, oh, then... Because they were literally, like, him and Ivanova were just talking about how word is spreading and some of the alien races are, like, pulling out of, like, meetings and things like that. And then the door opens and Londo walks out and he's like, Captain! Commander! And it was, like, so stern, and then he holds up the doll and it's like, oh, it's about the doll, okay. But he legitimately never sounded angrier, so, you know. There's fun to be had, but not one of the you know...
I mean, I'm sure we'll get it. People in the comments are talking about like a two-parter that's supposed to be pretty good. So I guess that's coming up.
I'm sure it is. I have a complete faith that it is. But there you go. So that's there all the honor lies. So let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments below. You can like and subscribe. That does help us a lot. That is how YouTube sort of helps success and dictates success, because they will share us out. They'll recommend us to more people, more Babylon 5 fans, more TV review fans, whatever it may be. So please do hit those buttons. Ding the bell even if you want the notifications for when things go up. Tara, why don't you tell them about Patreon?
Yeah, if you like our reviews, please check out the Patreon page. It's patreon.com/mouthfuzztv. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes for other shows we do, including the Ace, our science fiction movie review show. And if you donate $5 per month, you will get access to these Babylon 5 reviews 1 week early. And some other shows you get a day early, and sometimes you get to vote for what movies we watch.
Yeah. So
check it out.
There you go. That is the show. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Babylon 5 and just, you know, don't give away the homeworld. And that's exactly the sort of stress that led to Veer drinking his misery away.